Hey friends, welcome to the Raising Boys and Girls podcast. I'm Sissy Goff.
And I'm David Thomas.
And I'm Melissa Trevathan.
And we're so glad you joined us for this conversation. Let's dive in.
We were over the moon recently to have a conversation with our new friend, Kate Bowler. Kate Bowler, PhD, is a New York Times bestselling author, podcast host, and a professor at Duke University. She studies the cultural stories we tell ourselves about success, suffering, and whether or not we're capable of change. On her popular podcast, Everything Happens, Kate speaks with people like Malcolm Gladwell, Beth Moore, Archbishop of Canterbury Justin Welby, and Anne Lamott about what wisdom and truth they've uncovered during difficult circumstances. Kate's work has received widespread media attention from the Today Show, the New York Times, the Washington Post, and NPR. Her TED Talk has been viewed more than 10 million times. She lives in Durham, North Carolina with her family and continues to teach do-gooders of all kinds. Okay, so we want to start with hearing a little bit about you. We obviously know so much that's publicly out there about your story. That's never all of our story, obviously. But we feel like we hope every person listening is already familiar with all of your work. But if they're not, will you talk a little bit about your story, your family, growing up, and how you found your way to being such a force for good in this world?
Oh, hon. Well, sure. I'm from the middle of Canada, and both my parents are professors. And for some reason, along the way, I became obsessed with the idea that academia and just like studying, especially church history and religious thought, was going to be the plan for my life. And every time you make an amazing singular plan, it always works out. And that's the end of that story. So, never mind. So I spent my 20s interviewing televangelists, which is just a wonderful way to really waste your youth. And I was trying to make sense of the idea that that what God really wants for all of us is fundamentally just to make us happy. And that God wants to make us happy and also bonus healthy and wealthy. And that this was a story about the prosperity gospel. And everyone thought the story was either like a ridiculous caricature, like, oh, I can't believe they think that, or had like a secret hope that was maybe entirely true. And so I wanted to write the first history of this idea in, I thought, an honest but compassionate way. But I never thought that I was in any way the kind of person. I grew up Mennonite, so we love suffering, just being a gentle bummer and making furniture is kind of our main thing. So don't take that away from us. And, but then, so, life just kept unraveling. I just kept really hitting every road bump. I was really struggling to get pregnant. I had all these chronic pain, disability issues. I lost use of my arms for 2 years. That was the end of my 20s. And then I finally landed my dream job. I got this fancy Duke professor job when I was 29. And I was like, okay, this is it. Like, I've locked it in. My dream is finally achieved. And actually my dad, my sweet historian dad, because I grew up on the University of Manitoba campus, which has so many, it feels like, architectural tributes to the Stalinist era. It's just like, what else can be done with cinder block? We don't know. Let's discover that together. So when he saw my little academic Shangri-La, my dad was like, oh, sweetie. I thought we were going to have like a really nice moment. He's like, if you ever leave a place like this, I'll kill you. And I was like, okay, I get where this is going. So yeah, I finally, I got pregnant, had this perfect little Zach, and had my dream job. And then it was right at that moment when I discovered that I had stage 4 cancer, and that I was probably not going to live throughout the year. And I was so furious. I was so hurt. It was like the big feeling of like betrayal by God, I suppose. Like, well, I finally stuck the landing and you do this. So that was kind of the beginning of me realizing that I had like that there was something that was going to happen in the undoing. And that a lot of it was kind of related to my secret prosperity gospel feelings that maybe God was supposed to be conspiring to make my life happy. And then what am I supposed to believe? And that also just became the time when I stopped being just an academic, which I have loved being an academic, but I thought, well, I'm not honestly going to be able to do this by myself. And so that's what started the kind of desire to write publicly and also just have a podcast, mostly because I needed other people to think with as I was going to try to figure out what to do with the rest of my life.
Well, and out of that, you have written books that we love, recommend, give us gifts, shout from the rooftops about all the time.
Yes.
Books like Everything Happens for a Reason and Other Lies I've Loved, No Cure for Being Human, and Other Truths I Need to Hear, Good Enough, and the Lives We Actually Live. And Kate, you say there's no cure for being human, but we are all good medicine. And you live that truth. You absolutely live that truth. And will you just talk more about even what that can look like?
Well, I guess I kind of hoped it would look like, maybe what do we even do in our 30s and 40s? You just think you're going to get somewhere where you've solved the problem, like solve the problem maybe of your own personality, solve the problem of like all of your dreams, family togetherness, health, success, all that stuff. And I guess what I kind of learned as cancer went from a crisis to a chronic condition, and then to just like, what does it mean to survive? I was like, oh, I guess we kind of are all doing that, right? Is we're moving into a place where we figure out like, well, what truths do I need that like bear up my life? If I'm never actually going to solve my humanity. So I really started thinking about our prosperity gospels and the way that especially like the story of health and wealth has become like a wellness philosophy that tells all of us that we're just sort of one time management strategy away. One clearing your inbox, one cousin who recently discovered essential oils, from like trying to take every part of our life and fix it. So that's definitely my personality is like, I just want to fix everything. Everything's a problem to be solved. So I guess I've been just spending a lot of time like theologically just trying to think about trying to live inside of this culture of exhausting perfectionism and maybe how to like live with a greater sense that, like our humanity is, we're people to be loved, not problems to be solved.
Okay. I'd like to talk about everything you're saying for 30 more hours. So, okay. You mentioned the cancer, and you were 35 when you were given that diagnosis.
Yeah, that's right.
I can't even imagine. And to have already spent these years researching good and hard with different folks, I'm sure some of whom you attached to their work and some of whom you probably didn't as
I'll
much.
name them all right now. Go ahead. I made a list.
So it's fascinating to have been in that work and then receive this diagnosis. And like you said, as much as we can probably say we don't adhere to the prosperity gospel, at some point, there are parts of that we have attached to over the years. How has that impacted your perspective on good and on hard in our lives, on suffering in our lives?
I think it was very humbling, honestly, for me to realize how personally invested I was in the prosperity gospel. I mean, I really thought I was like, I didn't grow up Pentecostal or that particular flavor of evangelical. I would have thought, well, I don't deserve my life. And so I think that bit has been very humbling. Now when I see it everywhere, which is to say 90% of what is available at our local Target, I see so much of myself in it, and it helps me. It helps give me, I hope, like a sense of sort of theological perspective of what we're up against. I think we're all up against this feeling that fundamentally who we are is wrong and in need of a solution that will be available in 7 affordable monthly installments. Let me just give you your credit card number. And that it accidentally has transformed our culture into one of almost perennial televangelism. I mean, really, social media has replaced most of what we used to just watch on late night TV in the 80s and 90s. And now everywhere you look, we have this really shiny, shellacked version of what it means to be a person of faith. I think a lot of us feel like failures most of the time now because of this like aggressive culture that we're in. So like, what is good? What's good when you feel like a loser?
Yes.
What is good when your health and your family doesn't look like you wish? What's good if you don't have really anything to say during the testimony section of or you dread passing of the horrible piece. Good God, I hate passing of the piece, partly because my hands are super sweaty. And I'm just like slowly wiping it down everyone's cotton. But yeah, I think it's very difficult right now for us to even know what it means to be honest with each other because we're so affected by the culture that we live in.
You know, Sissy, we are always looking for resources that help teach kids and remind them the truth about how special they are.
We sure are. And I know the ones you're about to tell our listeners about. Y'all, our friend Annie F. Downs has a brand new kids book that needs to bump to the top of your list.
You may know Annie from her podcast, That Sounds Fun, from the network we're on together, the That Sounds Fun network, or from her books for grown-ups.
Or her first kids book, What Sounds Fun to You, that I read with Henry all the time. But we wanted to be sure that you knew about this adorable new addition to her catalog. It's called So Happy to Know You.
The heart of this amazing picture book is to help your children learn early and often that being exactly who they are is the greatest gift.
It's full of delightful illustrations and some alphabet fun too. An A to Z look at all the special character qualities that can show our kids some of the amazing ways God created them.
With her always Annie magic, this book will teach the kids in your life to treasure how God made them special, rather than trying to fit into others' expectations of them.
Of course, because it's Annie. We need a copy for every office here at Daystar. This is a message all kids and honestly grown-ups need, right?
Yes. So Happy to Know You is out now, and you want to grab a copy wherever you like to buy books.
Don't miss this chance to tell the kids in your life just how special they are with So Happy to Know You by our dear friend Annie F. Downs. Available on Amazon and wherever books are sold. David, did you ever let your kids have gummy vitamins when they were little?
We sure did. It was the only way to get them to take their vitamins.
For a long time, Henry would only take the gummy vitamins too.
That's because they are basically candy in disguise. Most kids' vitamins are filled with sugar and chemicals.
Well, we didn't want him having all that junk. Vitamins are supposed to be good for you. That's why I'm so glad we found Hiya Kids Vitamins. Hiya is made with 0 sugar and 0 gummy junk.
Hiya was formulated with the help of nutritional experts to include a blend of 12 organic fruits and veggies and 15 essential vitamins and minerals, essential for supporting immunity, energy, brain function, mood, concentration, basically all the things we see kids for in our office.
Yes, it's amazing that a little chewable vitamin can help support all these areas of development for kids. But of course, we know kids don't really care about all that health stuff. Henry's favorite thing about Hiya is still the customizable jar that came with his first order.
We have worked out a special deal with Hiya for their best-selling children's vitamin. Receive 50% off your first order. To grab this deal, go to hiyahealth.com/RBG. This deal is not available on their regular website. So go to hiyahealth.com/RBG and get your kids the full body nourishment they need to grow into healthy adults.
You know, I've never even thought about it till you said that, but we have talked so much in, 30 years of counseling kids and families, we have never seen parents feel as much like failures as we're hearing in our offices these days. And the juxtaposition of social media and this presentation of you should be able to be this perfect parent. And these are all the things that we're seeing. And thankfully, the awareness and the drive in some ways towards more vulnerability and honesty, the two things coming together, I would think here we are opening up about our failures, but then the opposite in front of us is in front of us all the time. So I would think that's even driving some of the feeling of I'm just not there, when we sure all three want you to hear us saying, if you're listening, no one's there. That is not what this is. And even in our work, I'm feeling convicted as you're talking, honestly. Thinking about writing a book called The Worry-Free Parent, Raising Emotionally Strong Boys. We just want y'all to hear us say, it is not really possible this side of heaven. But it's what we're moving towards, and it's what we can experience under this banner of who God is, but only because of him, not because of anything inside of us or the work that we're doing, because that's not the end of this work until we get to heaven.
I bet you guys see so much therapeutic prosperity gospel, because I know that I see a lot of people leaning toward a story of like, well, if I just get to perfect emotional self-management,
and have the 5 tools, right?
And you're like, okay, well, actually, I mean, our story has like great joy and great sorrow, and if it doesn't, we practice being sad about Jesus dying every year. So feel free to just join us during the bummer season. If that lower range of emotion is not attractive to you, we'll bring it up.
Oh, yes. Yes, that's so good.
Oh, Kate, in this season of the podcast, we are talking about stages of development and who kids are in different seasons and what they need. And we would just love to begin there by asking you, what was your favorite stage growing up and why?
Oh, that's so fun. I guess, no. I'm going to give you my horrible answer. This is because this checks out now. But it was, I went through this horrible, wonderful 2.5-year period where I read every book about the Holocaust. And it turns out that I know a lot of girls who go through the Holocaust stage. But it's the first time when I could go to a library and I could read about the problems in the world, and that it was like this big worldview opener. That it wasn't, because I had been through a very horse phase where I was just hoping that there was a horse named Artemis out there who was going to really understand my personality. But then I was like, wait a minute, there are serious sad books out there. To cut to 2.5 years later of like a montage of me crying. But I think what it did was it made me absolutely obsessed with the idea that there's that there are questions about the human condition there's not an answer to, that we will always struggle with. What is great evil, personally and systemically? What is the value of community? Can we really save each other? Like, that was the first time I was like, oh my gosh, they let me have this for a library card. So yeah, that was Kate Bowler, ages 12 and 13. And she was very weepy.
But I love that you're saying that. I mean, I can't tell you the amount of girls over the years that I have talked to through the horse phase of their life. So common. And I wouldn't say the Holocaust phase is as common across
How dare
development.
you? How dare you not say that is an official stage?
But let me say that has to do with the next question we want to ask, because I think there are parts of your Holocaust phase, Kate, that very much are reflective of who you have become. And that you have become a person who is not afraid to walk with people towards suffering and to talk about it. And that really is, I mean, this is we're working on interviews for this new season, and we were talking about questions, and one of them really was, we would like to know moments when you look back on your life that you would say, oh, there's me.
Oh, how
there
nice.
I am starting to emerge. Yeah. And I didn't even realize that that's what was happening. And so obviously you said 1 or 2. The combination of the 2 is probably where it is. But what would you add to that?
That's so interesting. Yeah, it's really funny also, just because especially with the pandemic, a lot of women have been experimenting with hair that gets longer and longer and longer. And I saw a friend the other day and she was like, yeah, I really feel like I'm riding the line between hot girl and horse girl with this braid. I was like, please write that down immediately.
No.
My horse girl phase is never over. I think one of my, especially when because I see it in my son, this, and I was like, which superpower would do you wish you could have? And he's like, oh, I just wish I knew what everyone was thinking. And I remember feeling that too, is if I could just figure that out, I could, navigate this obstacle course, which is adolescence. But it's always been the great hope with empathy, is that I could be always soft enough, but astute enough to be able to read what other people, like especially people's struggles. So I love that when I see, the horrible burden of empathy descend on children. When I'm like, oh, this is going to be a lifetime, a lifetime of learning to read and a willingness to be read.
You mentioned your amazing son and thinking about the stages of development with him. What's been your favorite with him so far and why?
He's in the pirate years right now, where it's just like a gentle, it's like half hoarder. Treasures. The world is full of treasures. And but he's still, because he's 9, just turning 10, he still has a face that's only one layer, which is so beautiful. And we make up stories all the time. And lately we've been making up stories about because we were talking about attachment, actually. And he's like, we're talking about why he loves his stuffies so much and why I always love stuffed animals. And he's like, Mom, do you think someone could fall in love with something if they just saw like a smiley face painted on the road? And I was like, oh, I bet. So now that's our new superhero, is someone who the second they see a smiley face, they're so in love. And I just love that. But he's, it's they're trying to figure out, who is theirs, who cares about them. The world is getting a little bit bigger, but not so big, but still a lot of stuffies. Yeah, right now is my favorite stage, really. He's so into he didn't want to go to school today, and I was like, oh sweetie, like, okay, well, what kind of job do you want to get if you don't want to go to school? He's like, I'll be an archaeologist. I'm like, sorry buddy, you need more than 3rd grade for that. You better get in there.
What would you say has been the hardest stage so far, and why?
To be honest, all of his stages, I've mostly just mapped onto my experience of trying to of figuring out how to be his mom when I was sick. So when he was very little, and I have like such an obsessive, intense desire not to miss anything that I've been in every stage. I've been so grateful to clear the hurdle of like, oh my gosh, he's getting older. I'm getting older. We're getting older. And the panic of that is going away, but the intensity about it really hasn't. So when he was little, I was just obsessed with him getting memories so that he could remember me. And then, it's been a kind of, his development has mostly also been me trying to figure out what does it mean to be a mom that's not fully well for a lot of the young stuff. It was especially hard when I was like, I had to wear a chemotherapy pack and like I couldn't be as like rough with him. So I did a lot of like sock puppets, a lot of puppetry during those years. But I think that's why now that it's just getting more and more casual, I can't believe we're having new problems. It's just, I have to say the whole thing feels obsessively about just being so surprised that I can watch his independence from me, who thought I was the center that must hold, which I believe is a common myth of every parent.
Yes. Oh, I can't even imagine the memories that y'all are making. I mean, I can't even imagine just who you are and knowing that little guy getting to have those conversations with you about archaeology and superheroes and smiling faces. And I mean, I can't even imagine, Kate.
Sissy, how is Henry liking school this year?
Oh, he loves it so much. But you know what? I can tell that sitting and paying attention all day can be hard at his age. So when he comes over to my house, I love breaking out our KiwiCo boxes so he can practice hands-on learning and creativity.
That is what I love about KiwiCo. Whether it's about science or sensory play, games or geography, every crate designed by their team of experts inspires excitement, curiosity, and moments of discovery.
Exactly. And kids need that kind of learning. Right now, we're really into Atlas Create, where kids can learn about the world. Henry made a globe and learned all about the continents.
What an amazing way to open kids' eyes to different places and cultures.
Yes, KiwiCo delivers seriously fun, hands-on projects that inspire a lifelong love for learning.
And KiwiCo has crates for kids of all ages, from infants and preschoolers to teens and beyond.
If you're new to KiwiCo, it's a super cool subscription for your kids that offers fun and enriching science and art projects, encouraging them to get outside, explore, and stay off their screens.
And there's no long-term commitment. You can pause or cancel anytime.
KiwiCo has been creating awesome family experiences for the last 10 years with over 40 million crates delivered and over 20,000 five-star reviews.
Redefine learning with play. Explore hands-on projects that build creative confidence with KiwiCo. Right now, get 50% off your first month plus free shipping on any crate line at kiwico.com/RBG.
That's 50% off your first month at kiwico.com/RBG. You know, David, fall is all about the back to school and back to routine checklist, and one task on that list should be securing your family's financial future, starting with life insurance.
That's true. I remember worrying about that when my kids were young. That's why I'm so happy to tell parents about Fabric by Gerber Life. Fabric by Gerber Life makes it quick, easy, and affordable to protect your family so you can get back to enjoying life.
Fabric was designed by parents for parents to help you get a high-quality, surprisingly affordable term life insurance policy in less than 10 minutes.
Fabric has flexible policies that fit your family and your budget, with quality policies like $1 million in coverage for less than $1 a day.
You could go from start to covered in less than 10 minutes with no health exam required. Not sure if life insurance is right for you? Take Fabric's quick 60-second quiz to find out.
There's no risk to apply. They have a 30-day money-back guarantee, and you can cancel at any time. Fabric has partnered with Gerber Life, trusted by millions of families like yours for over 50 years.
Join the thousands of parents who trust Fabric to protect their family. Apply today in just minutes at meetfabric.com/RBG.
That's meetfabric.com/RBG, MEET, fabric.com/RBG. Policies issued by Western Southern Life Assurance Company. Not available in certain states. Prices subject to underwriting and health questions. Kate, when you reflect on that particularly hard season, is there anything that you wish someone had said to you?
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe something that someone did say to you that really stayed with you as you think back on that season?
Well, I learned something that I didn't really want to learn when I had to open my house up to everybody because I had such a round robin of people visiting and so much sort of health chaos, is having everybody there all the time really did change my parenting because I couldn't be I wasn't going to be the intermediary between him and everybody else. I was going to have to allow a lot of people to parent him. And that was very uncomfortable for me at first because I'm obsessed with him and he smelled like cookies. And I was like, get away from my marshmallow, But watching how quickly he developed like really, really healthy trust for other people and loves their routines and their little habits. I mean, like still my parents talk with him on Skype almost every night and just listening to them have their own adorable little habits. I wouldn't have picked any of it, but the idea that I'm not an island has become central to how I hope I will continue to raise him. Is like, all right, your kid is a group project, whether you like it or not. So may as well kind of settle into which people you can really trust to supplement the parts that you can't or won't always provide.
What wise words. Oh my goodness.
Project.
Couldn't be more true.
That. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, so we would love to know some of your favorite parenting advice you've ever heard along the way. I feel like you have given people lots of their favorite parenting advice just in this conversation. But what would you say is something that has taken root inside of you that someone said to you?
I guess I love it. I learned from my old Mennonite church growing up had some wonderful group parenting, and so I developed a couple little habits I took from watching this sweet little church of Mennonite misfits. But one, Mr. Litz was abundantly formal with all of his daughters in a way that bestowed great dignity on them at all times, and it made me laugh but being overly formal with children, it's like I do it all the time, and I love seeing it in other people. But treating their little lives like there's great ceremony is needed. Hello, Miss Rachel. Thank you so much for for bestowing your presence upon us. Because every little kid, if they feel like they're somehow on your level, they're just like the stories, So I find I do it at the pool. I do it like, oh, hello, Mr. Trevor. I like treating them like they're tiny royalty. It makes me laugh and it makes them laugh. But yeah, great formality, I think, because their brains are wonderful. And then I'll find little treasures. My friend, Catherine, is the person I co-parent with the most. And I've learned so much from her about graduated independence. She's constantly making like a scavenger hunt and then sending her kids off to help them learn independence. I do not want my child to learn. And I have to say, watching other people not activate their giant fear response has been really important for me because I have like hyper anticipatory, let me just put every Band-Aid on in advance kind of attitude. So letting her kids not need her has been such an inspiration. So yeah, mine is being obsessed with the idea that underneath in their skulls is a great, incredible story. And so I'm very good at getting to know like a kid's very strange habits. And she's wonderful at like setting them off on an adventure that I don't plan on them having. And somewhere in there, I think is probably my greatest, the greatest description of whatever it is I'm doing.
Okay, we like to move from parenting to food. We somehow find our way there in every episode. And a few questions we'd love to ask you that are food related. Yeah. First would be, what family meal would you say defined your growing up, or what meal will likely define your son's growing up?
Well, I would say that the three of us didn't exactly grow up during the great culinary renaissance we are now experiencing. So the meal of my childhood was a thing my dad invented, quote unquote, called hamburger soup goop, which was like a whole can of vegetable soup and then ground beef. And I think ketchup on top. And that was Tuesday through Thursday. And it was the era. It was the canned era. But that is the unbelievably, hilariously low rent approach that I breakfast for dinner. Great. That's the everyone's going to be okay attitude toward food. So yeah, hamburger soup goop changed my life. And I think most of the food that we do now that he'll remember is we go camping a lot. So there's just a world of pancakes. It's also wonderful. The 2-ingredient box mix.
There you go.
Wonderful. Okay, well, we talk a lot about tacos on this podcast as well, and we love to know what's your favorite.
My favorite taco?
Your favorite taco. Oh you can dream as big as you want.
I like how you're saying this to someone who grew up in Manitoba. Where like a taco was like, do you remember those box kits? That's all we had. We were square on the bottom. Was the quote unquote invention in order to make them stable.
Yes.
Yeah. No, I am the world's most basic person. I just want someone else to make it. And if anyone puts anything adventurous on there, I'm just like, take me there. Take me there. I don't deserve it, but I want to go.
Ah, that's so good. Well, we're going to be kind of near you. How far is Charlotte from you?
2.5 hours.
Oh, that's not near you. I was going to say you could give us a taco recommendation, but that's too far.
I only know the meatballs at the local IKEA. Should you choose to meander over that way?
That sounds wonderful. Oh, I mean, I would like to come up with 10 more questions just to keep you on the call with us.
You
You would.
guys, I so
Thank
appreciate
you.
you. You're like fonts of compassion. And I'm just so grateful for your ministry. You make people kinder, all of
Well,
us.
We are you do the same. You
Yes,
make
you
us
do.
kinder and deeper and more thoughtful and reflective and so many different things. And you are every bit as lovely and delightful as we knew you
Yes,
would be
you are.
in person.
You should know, though, that when I go home, it's your podcast I see on my friends' iPhones, and it makes me feel cool right now. So I'm going to bring that up. Accurate.
So sweet.
It's accurate.
You're so
It's true story.
kind.
You come
That's-
highly recommended
that's
by
very
Carolyn from home.
Oh,
and all
hey,
of our
Carolyn.
friends,
Oh, well, that's high
Thank you for
compliment.
giving us this time.
Oh my
It's
gosh,
been
guys.
a joy to be in
Let's
your
do it
company.
again.
Yes,
Thank you. We'd love to.
anytime.
Thank you.
Okay. Well,
And
come
if
on
you
by.
make your way to Nashville,
I will.
we
That'd be
would
fun.
love to hang out with you.
Yeah.
I
Yes.
love that.
If you are enjoying the Raising Boys and Girls podcast, click follow on your podcast listening app to subscribe and not miss an episode.
Join us next time for another episode where we'll bring you help and hope on your journey of raising boys and girls.